Hello folks, today we're going to learn how to remove the connectors from the old halogen style headlights for Toyota 4Runner and swap them out for the new LED OEM headlights for the 2021 4Runner. Now there is a difference in the connectors, and that's what we're going to be switching out. So for the old halogen style connector, there you can see that is the plug style. It's still two-prong, but it is a different design from the 2021 headlight. So what we have to do is remove this connector and swap it out with this one, which is actually a fairly easy process. The only thing you're really going to need is a pair of needle nose pliers and a flathead screwdriver. All right, to remove the halogen style connector, that's all you have to do is take your flathead screwdriver, stick it in that little slot right there, and just sort of pry up. And that ought to bring the connector up. So once the connector is removed, just slide it right off the top here. And we're gonna go ahead and remove that insert in there. Now, you have to pay attention to the wires here. So for the old style halogen headlight, you had a red on the right and a black wire on the left. That may not necessarily be true for the new OEM LED headlights. I already swapped out the left headlight and I had to reverse the polarity on this plug, which means I had to take the right wire, the red wire, and stick it on the left side of the connector. So we're going to start by removing the halogen plug off of the old headlight. It's very simple. So all you have to do is take this center piece right here. It's a piece of plastic, and it's all it is a friction fit insert. So we take our needle nose pliers and just pull, and it comes right out. Now, I've already had this out, so it was quite a bit easier to pull out. You'll feel some resistance, it'll pop out and become loose. Just keep pulling, promise you won't break anything, and it'll come right out. So now, we'll set that aside because that becomes important later. So now if you can see inside this plug, you have two different plastic tabs. You've got one here and you have one there. So those plastic tabs need to be pushed down, and that will release the actual terminals inside of the fitting. So we'll go ahead and stick our flathead screwdriver down and in. And what you want to do simultaneously is kind of pull from the back side, and that will help in releasing these terminals as well. So I've got one down right there, if you can see that. It is now down, and the other side is still engaged, right? So now we're gonna go ahead and pop the other side down. Now that the other side is down, we can start to kind of gently pull from the back side. Now, if you meet a lot of resistance, then you definitely don't want to keep on pulling. But once these plastic pieces are down, the terminals will be free to remove from the back side of the fitting. And it might take you a few tries. It's not a big deal. Just try not to force anything. All right, so now you see both of these terminals are down. So now what we can do is just pull the wires from the back side, just like that. Now remember I said I had a wire, the red wire was on the right and the black wire was on the left. Maybe that's not necessarily going to be how the orientation is, because remember, this is a different plug. Okay, so I had to flip the red wire to the left side in order for my LED light to actually light up on the new model. So you may have to do that. But again, it's fairly simple. You're not going to damage anything. It's pretty simple to get this thing to work. This is now the new 2021 style connector. I'll give you a really quick view of how this thing is put together. This is what it's going to look like once it's fully taken apart. It does have a plastic insert, and actually this one's quite a bit easier to take apart than the old style. So for the new one, all you really have to do is kind of pull up. You don't have to worry about lifting the tab, but that tab is right here if you do meet some resistance. So that tab's right there. Just go ahead and stick a flathead screwdriver under there, lift it up, and it should pop out. But because this is a brand new light, you shouldn't have any issues. So like I said, you have a insert there. Fairly simple. Pull it out, comes right out, no issues at all. And like I said, this one is actually quite a bit easier to remove, just based on the fact that you have quite a bit more room in there to work with. Still have the same plastic locking mechanisms here at the bottom. You got one there and one there. And if you can see them, there they go. One there, one there. So it's actually very simple to remove this as well. Just take that plastic locking mechanism, push down, and you can simultaneously pull from the rear as well, and it will release the terminals. All right, so this one is released, that one is not. So again, that's all you have to do is get into that little locking mechanism and make sure that it goes fully down. There. Now you can see both of those are fully down. So from this point forward, you should just be able to gently pull the wiring out. Looks like this one's not fully released. There we go. And you may have to try this a few more times. This one is a little bit stuck. It's not a big deal. Just gonna go back in here, make sure that tab is fully down. And there we go. All right, now that the wires are out, pay special attention to the wires and the coloring. Now remember, I said that my wires, I had to do the red wire on the left side and the black wire on the right side. Now, when you're inserting it into the old style connector, it's good to hold it like this, okay? So you have a good orientation. So, it should be as simple as just inserting these two terminals into the circular holes at the bottom. Make sure that those grooves that are on these terminals are facing up, because those are going to catch the little plastic tabs at the bottom. And as you can see, as I insert this, you should hear a positive engagement on it. Should hear a click. There we go. And there we are. So now both of the terminals are in. They're fully engaged. We take our little plastic insert and just make sure that you've got it in the right orientation. You don't want to force this thing in there. There's a little groove here on the bottom side. You can see that on the bottom of the plastic insert. That has to match up with the groove here in the actual plug. So it's just as simple as sliding it in and then making sure it's fully seated. You should hear a slight little pop there, or a little click. So now it's fully seated. We're gonna go ahead and test them just to make sure that everything works out all right. And again, if your lights don't automatically light up, if something doesn't go right when you turn your headlights on, just go ahead and flip these two wires. And it's just a polarity change, and it should be no issues.